Good morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket aces. So we're technically in the middle position, folded to me. So I open raise using the middle position raising range. So it's about 16%. I raised the 5 big blinds because we do have a poster. So instead of, if I just raise 3, he's probably going to come along. And if he comes along, then I'm going to probably get one or more of these guys to come along. So I raised 5, put a little bit more pressure on villain 2, and we get villain 3 calls. Villain 3 is the only one that calls. Villain 3 is playing 53-37. We've got 20 hands on him. Interesting player in terms of the stats. His VPIP is pretty wide. He's playing a lot out of these 20 hands. His raise first in stats pretty good, but he hasn't called a 2-bet. He hasn't really raised with previous limpers. He's limped behind, but it almost seems like if it's folded to him, he's more likely just to raise, and raise anything and try to take advantage of possibility that other players are playing a little too tight and tending to fold. So since he's more likely to play if he's like raising first in, I think his calling range could be a bit tighter. So I set up 17.5%. We could always check it, widen it up and see how my strategy changes. But I think I'm going to make a tighter range. Flop comes out, jack high, no flush draw. I fired a c-bet here. I think any jack's going to call. I do think middle pairs, he does have quite a bit of jacks in there. So I bet half pot he calls. A 2 comes out. So I have overpair. I've got a gut shot straight draw. I fired half pot again with the intention that if he raises, I'm probably going to call here. Call with the gut shot, and then evaluate on the river. 7 comes out on the river, puts up a spade to draw. Yeah, it's a possibility he has a spade maybe, but also jacks, ace jack, king jack, queen jack with the overpair. I think he's more likely to call with those jack hands and probably bet. Although with 20 hands, it's hard to judge that. So I went ahead and fired a c-bet and he calls. So let's see what GTO says. GTO actually puts us at betting 32%. So it gives us a mixed strategy. It does have us betting about 50% of the time with aces, a little more with kings, queens, and jacks. So I think with aces, we're less likely to see that next card flip the equities. So if I'm ahead now, I'm going to probably still be ahead on the turn, regardless of the card. Of course, jack is kind of an exception, but it looks like we could see bet or check. Looks like we are betting with some of these low aces. Much more likely to bet when we have that backdoor flush draw. So hearts or spades or diamonds. So I bet, and then villain calls. Villain's going to be calling. Well, he should be raising with sets. Some of his sets he's calling with middle pair plus. He calls with a weak pair. So he's calling 66% of the time. And this is kind of what I would have guessed, that he's going to be calling a bit, which kind of makes me think I should have done like 2/3 spot, a little bit higher if he is going to be calling. But again, out of 20 hands, we don't have a super large sample size on what he does when faced with a flop c-bet. So he calls, then we're going to be betting a little bit more. So if we c-bet, then it looks like we are c-betting, or we are firing that second barrel. Exceptions, though, would be the small aces, ace 6, ace 7, ace 8, ace 9. You could do the pairs, the ace X with the pairs. I think are fine to bet, but the 6, 7, 8s, basically we only have an overcard or an ace. So we bet with the spade draw, but we're going to be checking everything else. I'm going to guess king 10, queen 10 is about the same. Yep, if we've got the spade, we are betting. Even jack 10 we're checking. So some of our top pair hands, we're going to be checking it. Jack 10, Jack 9, but King Jack, Ace Jacks are betting. So we're increasing our betting frequency here. We assume that if we bet, he could have been calling with a lot of these lower cards. We don't want to give those necessarily free cards. I guess why not get value if he's going to call those again? We do have some checks. So if we check, we allow 6-7 to go ahead and bet now, try to steal the pot, and we call. And we've got a pair. So like if we check and he bets, we could call 8s and 9s. 7s are gonna be folding. 7, 8 gut shot, we fold. Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna have a whole lot of those. We're folding hands that we missed. Simple as that. So we do bet, and then villain should be calling with pairs. Again, you can see his top pair and weak pair hands. We're setting ourselves up to where villain's going to have a lot of these one pair hands that he will probably call a bet on the river, but would probably, if he plays GTO, check behind. So that means that once we get to the river, I'm going to guess that we are betting for value over cards plus. So we're betting 75%. We are betting over cards plus. We are also betting some of our top pair, which most of our top pairs are going to be these top pair, top kicker. So what happens if we check? We do have some checks. I bet Jacks is a check raise here. Yeah, let's see here. Check. He bets. Now we just call with Jacks, I guess. Guess we're guarding against the possibility. This would basically be an all-in. So we don't have the nuts because we would have been betting those. So I guess when we check and he bets, we're calling with trips. We're calling with top pair. Some of our weaker kickers. So we did bet. Villain should be raising a lot of those hands. He doesn't. So I think if he raises, then kind of queens, kings, aces. If we have the ace of spades, we can call. But everything else we just fold because he probably has a flush. And I think I probably would have done that too. If I bet and he raises, I'm probably just going to have to get rid of this hand. So far it looks like I'm basically playing GTO. Let's see what he has. Because we go to showdown, he has 5-6 offsuit. So I did not have that in his range, but when he calls, I do have 5-6 suited. So let's see here. He calls with middle pair. That's fine. We bet he calls with middle pair again with 5. That's fine. And then he calls again, so we got our 3 streets of value. Let's go ahead and open up his range. So if he played 5-6, he's going to play all of those, probably these offsuit aces, maybe even all of these offsuit aces. At least that. Maybe something like that. So let's build our tree. I am gonna run the solver and I will be back. Solver finished up. So with this wider range, we are increasing our betting. So if we think he's got a wider range, we're definitely going to be c-betting much more. We are c-betting basically just across the board more. Our middle hand's going to have a few more checks here because we don't really, we won't have a huge number of draws, backdoor draws. Same thing with like ace 10, ace 9, ace 8, ace 7 have the possibility of backing into the straight as well, but we are betting the cards that do have backdoor potential. Ace queen, ace king's kind of interesting, so we're more likely to bet if we don't have that backdoor flush with the ace king, ace queen. That's interesting because I don't know if I would have picked up on that. I guess we're checking the ace, king, ace, queen of spades, diamonds, and hearts because we do have those backdoors. We can check and probably check call. Let's see if we check and he bets playing GTO. Yeah, it looks like we're just going to be calling with those, which I think is something that I'm doing, or I would be doing. So we bet, he calls. We had the two of spades. His call, he should be raising sets in two pairs. We'll assume that he is playing GTO, and then we slow down with our betting. So now we throw aces into our checking range, and the reason why we're doing this is to protect the rest of our checking range. If we're still ahead, it's unlikely that river is going to change, so we won't see as many scare cards that are out there. Jacks, queens, and kings, on the other hand, we could bet because Villain could play an ace X hand, and if he hits an ace, hey, he just now has a better pair than us. The other thing to remember is that we were c-betting a lot more now, which means we're going to be checking with more hands in our range on this turn. So we have to kind of pick out what solid hands are we going to check. We have some overpairs. We're going to kind of randomize some of our three of a kinds, the low trips. We do have one of the top pairs, but some of our flush draws are going to be checking. It looks like some of our A7, A8, we're kind of randomizing it at that point. So if we check and he bets, now we get aces with the check raise. We check raise with our kings and queens. So that could have been an interesting play to use. We c-bet and then we check and he bets and we raise it. What would that be? Okay, so pot's 24. We check. He bets 12. Let's say here he bets 12. So he's got 72 left, and then we check raise it. It says check raise it to 37, so 3 times that bet. So it's 24 more. If he calls that, he's got like 50 big blinds. So let's try that. So I think it was 7 of spades is what comes on the river. So he bets. I raise it. Let's say he calls, and then we're basically just going to shove him in at that point, and he's going to call with a top pair. He's got some top pair hands. At this point, if he calls, we're going to be behind. I'm sure we're going to be behind. Okay, but he could end up folding some two pairs and sets maybe. Right now, he's got 14 combos of top pair, and who knows? That's his GTO has him folding some of those. Who knows? Maybe he calls with all of them. In which case, it's actual 14 combos versus 20 combos, 21 combos of two pair plus. I think we really drastically increase our variance, and I think at this point, I look at it and I'd question why would we bet here? Why not just check, let him bet, and we call? Because I think he's betting. He's still going to be raising two pairs. He should be checking top pair. So I guess it comes down to this top pair, middle pair. Is he going to call with those? He would just check. We can go for that last bit of value. I didn't do that, I bet. So let's say he calls again, and now based on my betting range, we would still be betting our overcards, which I think is still appropriate. However, it goes back to this turn. We had such a wide c-betting range. We're betting with so many of our combos, so many of our cards that we will be having to start checking a bit more, and we have to throw in some decent hands to check with. So aces is in there, and that's going to be check raise. Some of our pairs are in there. I bet we're going to, if we check and he bets, we're probably going to be folding some of those. So we're calling 8s and 9s. We're folding some of the 7s. 5/6 call and so forth. And he should be folding the 5/6, some of the 5/6s. Call with the spade. Did he have the spade? No, he didn't. So, all right, let's end this here. I think we played it okay, but we have to pay attention to what our frequencies are. If we're going to be c-betting almost 100%, we're going to have to really slow down some of our bets on that turn. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, look tomorrow for another hand.